Welcome to DevOps Accents, a podcast on everything around DevOps, public cloud, and cloud-native topics, with your hosts, Pablo, Leo, and Kirill.
Okay, hi guys.
Hello.
This is DevOps Accent, where we, the founders of MKDev, gather together every other week to discuss everything around DevOps and some news and just giggle a little bit. So here is you, Pablo, Kirill, and I, Leo. Hi guys, how are you?
Fine. It's Friday, so very good.
Good.
Yeah, great. Same. What's new?
It's our anniversary episode.
Really?
Episode number 10.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's 10th episode. Already 10th episode.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, guys, who listens to us? Let's celebrate our anniversary episodes with a lot of shares and a lot of likes on our social media. This will be a great present for us for our birthday. Thank you for that in advance. And for those who listens to us for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter, MKDev Dispatch, the best source of everything new that happens on MKDev and around MKDev. And we share our the most recent articles, videos, and ads, some of our thoughts on that. And this is something that we are going to discuss because recently Kirill published one of the most interesting, at least to me, as a person who not let's say not a tech savvy in DevOps about Tekton. It was interesting to watch, and I wanted to discuss a little bit how things work in this environment. So Kirill, could you please explain a little bit for those who didn't see the video yet, who haven't watched the video yet, what this is about and why do you think this is important, what happens to Tekton today?
Right, so it's hard to explain what Tekton is without going back to basics, so I'll probably start a bit like from the very foundation of what Tekton is and what such systems are. We have a video called What Are Job Execution Systems, which I did like 2 years ago, where I discuss the basic concept. So job execution system is something that runs a job. So if you need to do something like run some script, you need a job execution system. And I've been discussing that there is basically always some central component that starts jobs, which is like a job server, and then there are job workers which execute these jobs. And that's something like that sits behind every CI/CD system. So CI/CD system is a tool that runs some jobs that are specific to software lifecycle. So, for example, they run automated tests, they run linting, and they deploy your application. And important to understand that every CI/CD tool, if it's Jenkins, GitHub Actions, all of them are just basically job execution systems purpose-built for CI/CD tasks. So if you take something like Airflow, it's a job execution system more built for some data engineering tasks. And then Jenkins is built for CI/CD. So Tekton, initially it was called Knative because it had way more features, but then it was redone to be this job execution system built on top of Kubernetes and with features related to CI/CD. So Knative was a bit more generic. It was able to just run some different generic tasks on top of Kubernetes, and it still exists. And then I think Google extracted some parts of Knative to be Tekton and refocus it on CI/CD things. So in case of Tekton, the job executor server is your Kubernetes cluster or your Kubernetes control plane, which is able to schedule jobs on top of your cluster. So instead of running web application, you can basically execute scripts as jobs on Kubernetes. But Kubernetes itself, it does not give you powerful enough primitives to run complex workflows or complex jobs. So you need always to have something extra on top of it to kind of build CI/CD system. And the philosophy of Tekton initially was that they give you these building blocks that are more familiar. So instead of having a pod or a job, you have a resource called pipeline. As in pipeline consists of tasks, and then each task does something. So you can actually build your CI/CD pipeline with Kubernetes native primitives and run your jobs on top of Kubernetes. And then the Kubernetes itself is a job execution engine, which is a good idea on its own, and that's something that actually lots of CI/CD systems did. So if you take Jenkins, so Jenkins has a Jenkins master, which is the job execution server, and then it uses Kubernetes optionally. Like you can configure it to use Kubernetes to run the jobs. So your jobs will be executed as pods, and then you get more or less the same as what Tekton gives you. But in case of Tekton, Kubernetes itself schedules the jobs. In case of Jenkins, the Jenkins master does it. Same goes for any modern CI/CD system. So if you take GitHub Actions, if you take Circle CI, if you take Drone, whichever thing, it can always basically connect to Kubernetes and run CI/CD jobs on top of Kubernetes. And the reason I've made this video about Tekton is because we had another video about Tekton one and a half years ago, when I've basically explained how Tekton works. All of what I just said, that it gives you this lots of Lego blocks, and from these Lego blocks you can build your pipeline. And around the same time, everyone was kind of hyped about Tekton, so there were like lots of blog posts, lots of videos. There was lots of news about Jenkins X. There was the OpenShift guys basically like doubled down on Tekton, and they threw away Jenkins as a job execution engine from OpenShift pipelines and replaced it with Tekton. But then something happened, and like in last year, I did not really see any reports about Tekton. I know that some companies use it at some scale, so they implemented Tekton-based CI/CD system for their own, and it's still there because now it's hard to move away from something like Tekton when it's introduced into the organization. But there was no really new reports, so there was no kind of new big releases. Like if you compare it to Argo, which solves similar problems, there's like always something about Argo in the news. Like we just released Argo CD Lightning course because this technology just becomes more or less the standard GitOps tool. Things like number one popularity followed by Flux. But in Tekton, there was nothing really. There was like some releases from OpenShift pipelines. They released pipelines as code, which actually makes Tekton usable. But that's about it. There were no like blog posts, there were no presentations and conferences, which kind of went into the underground. And the analysis I did, it was not the most complex analysis for sure, because it's a bit more advanced at Google Trends. I just looked who published what about Tekton in the last year in terms of YouTube videos. And really nothing. You can basically like count all the articles or videos like by fingers on one hand. Especially there was no big case studies about Tekton. There was some videos about, yes, let me show you how to use Tekton with this particular scenario. There was one video from one bank in Brazil that uses Tekton. It was like 4 months ago. And what I found hilarious is that they actually use GitHub Actions to trigger Tekton, because Tekton on its own doesn't make it easy enough for you to actually trigger a job. You need to bind together like 6-7 different resources to achieve this. And so, yes, that's kind of the background, because there was like this hype period around Tekton, and I was curious how it evolved. And you'll see the results in this video, but in short, there was like, it seems it did not manage to gain huge popularity. And I think for the good reasons, because Tekton forces you to build your own CI/CD system, which not every company wants. You normally want to actually like build CI/CD pipelines and not build everything that goes under the pipelines. So that's why the use case of Tekton, I think, remains extremely niche.
But I think that this is related to what we talked last podcast about the life of the technologies and how the technologies are accepted or not. Because in this case, I remember that the Red Hat, they were talking a lot about Tekton and OpenShift with Tekton and everything with Tekton alive. Everything should be Tekton. It's true. It was for 5-6 months. Everything was.
And funny enough, it's still the case. Like now, if you look who is actually still publishing content on Tekton, it's IBM or Red Hat. Google Cloud has this page about Tekton, because of course it's something that came originally out of Google, because Knative was a Google project.
Yes, but Red Hat is telling now to use Argo CD, for example, for OpenShift. They are not recommending to any customer to use Tekton anymore. They are telling to everyone, go to Argo CD and move everything, ACMs and everything, all the policies, everything move to Argo CD, and bye-bye Tekton. So, but what I try to say is that how a new technology appears, how everyone goes there, and then after 6 months, whatever, the the people understand that maybe this is not the good technology, and then nobody uses that anymore. Problem, what you were telling before. What happened now if one company at this point of stage decide, no, let's move everything to Tekton, and now everything is in Tekton, and nobody uses Tekton, and what happened now if because this is an open source project. What happened if, because nobody is interested in this project, all the developers are leaving, because of that the quality goes down? And what happened if one day they decided something like you were explaining the other day about our invoicing problem with this French company? What happened now if we go and they decide, okay, there won't be any new release of Tekton, and we end it? And this is a problem because now the company is going to be ended in a real mess. And this is one of the main problems with the open source when there is no money around. Because there is no money around of Tekton. Okay, there is money, but in different ways. Then, if nobody is interested in this project, I can close, and that's all. There is no contract between you and me for 5 years that tell to you, hey, you need to update OpenShift from 1 to 13, that is now. But you need to, for example, now I am with 3.11, and you need to support me for the next 5 years, because I already paid to you 1 million.
Yeah. Do you think this is a matter of that people are not interested in continue developing Tekton? Or I don't know, maybe they lost some interest or something different happened? Because I'm not in a position to get into an argument whether Tekton is a good tool or is like a dead or alive. I don't know. I just remember some time ago there was a constant debate about whether Ruby was dead or alive, and I remember whole articles dedicated to how programmers misusing Ruby or something like that, and that they're supposed to use it for that and not for this. And anyway, it was like a battle of the trends rather than an argument about technology and how to use it, and argument for argument's sake, as it usually happens on Twitter or something like that. Isn't it the same case, or there's something different happens?
But you need, in an open source project, you need to differentiate between, because open means open.
Yes.
So not that no money free. So it does not mean that you are not going to make money. So it's only to separate money with open and not open. So, but imagine one project that is founded by Google. And Google, they put people and they are developers paid by Google. And this is an open project. And then different developers around the world, they decided to focus and give free time to this project. And then, like for example, Kirill, he works in several projects. And then he decided to spend time in, imagine, OpenShift project. And then there is a problem and he can create a pull request, he can fix a bug, he can do many things. But what happened now if you have a project with 10,000 developers, not directly developers, 10,000 people who make a pull request, blah, blah, fix themes, and now this project is not, let's say, loved by the people, then the number of pull requests that you're going to have are going to be reduced, because the number of people who are going to care about that is going to be less and less and less. For sure that if this project is by Google, Google will say to, okay, how many people is using this project? Okay, imagine 1 million. Then I will give 100 people, because all those resources are expensive, but my name, my marketing, my brand is going up because I am giving that for free to the community. But if nobody is using that, you're going to reduce the number of people too. So, and maybe because I cannot make because this is the open version, but later on maybe I have another version, like for example, OpenShift. You have OCP, or you like the private version, and then you have a public version. So and maybe because nobody's using that, you don't want to. So nobody want to pay for that. You don't want to have two versions, the public and the private. So let's say in this way. So then you close the private one and you only have the open one, but nobody collaborate on that. And at the end, this is a dead project. This is the thing, is what happened is that it's like when you have the stock market at the end, the price can go up and down, but at the end is the own market who decide the price. So you can change the prices of the food, but at the end is the own market who is going to put the correct price. At the end, this is the thing. Is what happened with the products. So it's something, if the people doesn't like, nobody's going to buy that, and then nobody's going to work on that.
And the big thing is whether there is a company that actually is behind the open source project, because there are open source project which is just like some guy just wrote and then some other guy started to contribute. And another thing is, because Tekton is not something that is, let's say, purely community developed. It's actually something that is being backed by Google and by Red Hat and is being pushed forward. So, and like OpenShift and Red Hat has a big interest in having Tekton because you have this platform as a service called OpenShift. And the idea of OpenShift is that you install it and you have everything. You have monitoring, you have CI/CD, you have GitOps, everything inside. And OpenShift pipelines, like you want to have a way to build code. And actually Argo CD doesn't help you with this because Argo CD just applies YAML. So you need to have some system to actually run like Maven build or like pip install and then package everything. But they used to have Jenkins, but Jenkins is an open source kind of project from another company. So instead, they picked something that fits more for them and chose Tekton. And that's one of the use cases for Tekton, because in the end, Red Hat guys had to build something on top of Tekton that looks like a product. But once they see that actually not such many people use our OpenShift pipelines inside OpenShift, they prefer to use something else, they will probably deprioritize their resources on Tekton. Because it looks like an open source project where probably if you look at the majority of people who constantly push code to Tekton or similar projects, it will be like someone who works for Google, someone who works for IBM, someone who works for Microsoft, because they use this open source technology to power their business.
This is the funny part, especially when you said that Jenkins is powered by other companies and other people and other companies are contributing to develop Jenkins. I made a quick research about who develops Tekton, how it appears, and where Jenkins came from. And it appears both these tools came from the same people, at least from the same companies, and I just checked the list of the companies that contributed to Tekton, and it's basically the same list that for the companies that contributed to Jenkins, and above that, this Continuous Delivery Foundation, they are hosting both Tekton and Jenkins. Which I find quite funny because you've been comparing Tekton to Jenkins in your video, telling that what Jenkins does is essentially better in a better position than Tekton. And at the same time, we have the same people who do one tool and another tool. And this is kind of funny to me. And I don't understand why people prefer to, at some point, I don't know, like to invest more in one tool and abandon another tool rather than continue developing, I don't know, to invent just one tool and stick with that. This is a funny way how they distribute their spare time.
I think what's also funny here is this whole continuous this CD foundation, because I didn't dive too deep into where it's coming from, but I think the trend is concerning. So we have this cloud native CNCF cloud native foundation, which is basically this umbrella for like Kubernetes and all the cloud native projects, which I guess it's okay because actually every big cloud provider backstage, so it's kind of distorted entity. But CD foundation is even more strange because it's kind of we are the guys who define what's continuous deployment, continuous integration is. And then you look at the graduated projects and there is like Jenkins and Tekton. And then you look at the companies behind CD Foundation, and then it's like CloudBees, developers of Jenkins, and I think Jenkins X as well, and then I think Red Hat, developers of Tekton Operative Pipelines. And I think like, okay, Jenkins is a product, like I've been using Jenkins, like I think 12, 13 years ago, if not more. It's like, it's one of the first CD tools that kind of even, like everyone has Jenkins because it's so old and it was one of the first popular tools for the job. I get how this is graduated. How Tekton is a graduated project, and I mentioned this in the video, is just very confusing because you read description and it says graduated project is something stable, it tended like these incremental changes, it used at big enterprises. And then you look at Tekton, version 0.42.2. And then you look at other group, like that's only 2 graduated projects. So there are like now probably hundreds of CI/CD tools. There is GitHub Actions. Why GitHub Actions is not a graduated project there? Why one drone CI that also exists since like almost 10 years is not there? No. And it's a bit funny because some companies get together and it's like, say, via CD Foundation, we define what continuous deployment and integration is. And then they pick 2 projects that's like, no, that's graduate, that's good. You need to use this.
Yes, because Cloud Foundation, so CD Foundation, is Google, JFrog, and Red Hat. So and CloudBees, if I remember, the main members.
So Jenkins and Tekton, the developers. So it gives us, which I don't. I like the standards. I like open source. I like when we decide like my favorite example is this container standards. But this case is like companies who have real interest in pushing particular products create something that looks like an entity that's standardized on CD, but in the end, it's clearly just they push for particular projects that benefit the most.
And I check it now, the board members, and there are 4 guys, and one is from Red Hat, the other one is for Google Cloud, the third one is for CloudBees, and the fourth one is for IBM. So at the end, they decide what to do. So, okay, there are 2 for JFrog, eBay. So everyone is from a company. Is what Kirill is telling you. At the end is they decide what is the standard based on what the company needs to make a standard.
Yes, at the same time, they position themselves as a non-profit organization.
Of course, because they're paid. They are not.
Yes,
while
organization. At the same time, there is an obvious profit. I don't know. At least to me, I'm stepping on the thin ice here because this is like, I don't know, a conspiracy theory. Obviously, the people who are running Continuous Delivery Foundation or any other initiative that wants to standardize something, they might try to push their agenda and they might try to prefer something over another to help their own companies that also open source that also produce open source tools. I don't know, like Terraform, to push something towards their own benefits and sell something on top of that, because not everything open source means free to me. And there are a lot of ways to make money using open source, Pablo, and you know this better than anyone. You've published an article about that. Probably you could explain how companies might want to benefit from it and how they benefit from it, and why is how this is a good practice rather than a scheme.
For sure that first, I'm in favor of the open source. So I love that technology. But okay, this is the good side. It's super beautiful, and it's something that the people collaborate, and is the way. For example, when I started to work in the IT world, it was with Linux, and I'm talking about the 92, 93, 94, when the Linux was created. I'm an old guy. So, and it was something crazy because it was something really collaborative, not only Linus Todwell, Richard Stallman, and many others, creating GNU, creating the kernel, creating many, many things that all together, Miguel Di Caza, they created what now we have, like what this is today. Linux, that the people even nobody talk about Linux anymore because it sounds no cool. But okay, at the end, Linux is everything because Linux is still the base of everything. And this is how everything started. And I love that, and you're talking about something that is there since maybe 40, 50 years. Okay, this kind of certain technologies. But now the problem is appear when something that is good for all of us is in the world where everyone needs to have money. Because imagine that you are spending 30 hours of your life coding in something that at the end is not giving to you anything. So then the people is going to say, okay, I am not Mother Teresa, so I am not can help everyone in the world, and then I cannot use 30 hours of my week. I'm going to use only 5 or 3. So then there are many themes. First is the people. When you are a developer, at the end, your CV, your curriculum, could be your pull request. Okay, I am be working in this project, and this project. So, and there are many people who made that because of the CV, because it's true, it's very good to have a very good CV, and this is giving to you a very good CV that later on, when you go to request a job, you can prove in a super simple way who you are, only telling, okay, this is my GitHub profile. You can see how many stars I have. You can see how many people follow me. You can see many things. This is for the side of the people. But later on, for the side of the companies, we need to think that this is a trend. And the companies, what they do, they follow trends. Whatever is the trend. So if now it's popular to do something, always the company are going to try to follow the popularity, because if you don't follow that, maybe the customers are going to complain on you. So then they saw that it's super popular to be open in open source. So then what they have to do is they have to have open projects. So, and you see many companies that what they are doing is they are opening the projects to be able to, let's say, to tell to the world, hey, we are here too, and we are cool. So this is what we do, and we offer to the world. And this is very good, because then they get something back that is the marketing. So I made this product that is used by 10,000 people, 1 million of people, and it's made by Red Hat, or it's made by NKDev, or it's made by... So then this is very good, because you receive back something that you gave free. But again, we are talking about something free. We are not introducing the money here, still in this place. But now is coming the money. So how can I make money with a project that is open, where everyone can get this code, can go, use that? There are many ways. One is I am not going to offer all the code, and I'm only going to offer some part of the code, the one that I want you to work with and modify, and then the main part is still, let's say, private, and then you cannot use this other part without the main part. So then I force you to pay for this product. Or something else, I can make a free version to tell to you, okay, how cool is this free version? But the other version, like OpenSafe, the other version is the one that you need to pay, and is the one that my company is going to give to you support. So I am not going to give you support of anything that is in this free version. I give you support in the other version. Or everything is free, but I give to you support. For example, everyone at the beginning was telling, how HashiCorp, the company I was telling you before, is making money with Terraform. So now Terraform is a standard, and nobody think about something that is not Terraform. So if you want to deploy infra, it's Terraform worldwide. So everyone knows the word Terraform, and everyone knows HashiCorp. And then now what happened? That now you have this new experience with the new license that you need to pay to get different levels, to get different supports. You have companies like Google working for HashiCorp to create, because as soon as, for example, 2 days ago, Google Cloud opened these Cloud Run jobs. But it was 2 days ago, and at the same time is the Terraform version. So it's not possible that you have a Google Cloud object and there is no Terraform version. So you need to, and at the end, you make a tool that is a need for you, and because it's a need, if something happened because all your company is based in this tool, you need support, or you need to make something new, and then in this case, you need HashiCorp. So there are many ways to make money.
Do you think your project infrastructure is well set and maintained? We know for sure there is always room for improvement. If you are uncertain where to begin, let's first do an audit of what you already have. We will review your setup from every angle: performance, cost, security, high availability, and automation, and provide you with a detailed roadmap of which direction your infrastructure should go, generate concrete tasks for you to implement, or even take on your infra entirely, if you let us, of course.
But to me, this sounds like you, before anything else, you invest your own time and your own money into building something that potentially will become a bigger tool. And from how it looks, from my perspective, is different companies, different people are always trying to create something new. They try to invent, and they create new brand, new name, and this is the reason why there are so many of them. Like getting back to Tekton and Jenkins and Argo CD, that are basically tools that do the same things. They basically trying to create, a new Terraform, and to turn themselves into a HashiCorp that will make money from that. I don't know. So this I don't want to be this devil guy, but to me this sounds like everybody tries to exploit the term of open source, and they pretend they are doing good things. They pretend that they are contributing to everybody's happiness, and they improve their portfolio by doing so. At the same time, they contributing to a potential new Terraform tool to get money from that after that. And they masking it as a charity, as an open source. Isn't it something that happened? Because earlier you said that everybody knows HashiCorp, but is it? Because when I was looking for Terraform, I didn't. Okay, I know who's HashiCorp today, but when I started, I didn't know that, and I was genuinely convinced that Terraform is a company that creates Terraform tool. But then I learned that Terraform is open source project, and then I learned about HashiCorp, who also created Vagrant, for example, and now they're making money from Terraform. And can you even say that Terraform is an open source project anymore? Because there is a Terraform enterprise, and you have to pay for that. And HashiCorp is responsible for giving updates and creating new features for Terraform, because they asking money from the other companies and other teams to use their tool. How is that even open source anymore?
I think you need to distinguish like what companies ask money for, because it differs a lot. So HashiCorp, initially they were doing like open source projects in Terraform. Okay, not they, at that point it was like this Hashimoto and his co-founder. And they give away an excellent set of open source utilities, but then they sell managed services and support for this in a way that Red Hat is doing the same, for example. So the Terraform is open source. Anyone can contribute. There are like lots of people contributing to it. There is like a rich providers ecosystem. So anyone can create like a Terraform provider for some smaller cloud or for some another service. But then HashiCorp builds this Terraform cloud, for example, which they operate servers and they offer like an interface on top of Terraform with some extra nice features, and they charge for this. So this part is not open source, but it's not Terraform itself. It's something they built on top of Terraform, and then someone else can also just take Terraform because licensing allows this and build a similar tool on top of Terraform. Like there is like Env0, I think they also like automate Terraform and they sell similar product which is competing with Terraform Cloud. And that's good that HashiCorp allows it. So they say, yes, Terraform is open source. It actually does not belong directly to HashiCorp. It's like it has an open source license. And everyone is free to do whatever they want with Terraform. And for example, Pulumi, Like Pablo said, no one is thinking about using anything but Terraform, but now there's this thing called Pulumi. I'm not sure actually at which point of hype cycle Pulumi is right now, because beginning of last year, it was like, yes, Terraform is shit, let's use Pulumi. Now Terraform got more or less the same features with Terraform CDK, and it's like, why do we use Pulumi? And Pulumi was initial versions, actually, it's not sure how about now, but it was, you write the infrastructure in Python, and then underneath there is Terraform. And then they built also a managed service that you pay for, but in the end it was all built on Terraform, just with some extra features that they took from CloudFormation.
No, okay, so the HashiCorp still the good guys.
Well, they did IPO now, so the incentive now is to make more and more money, so maybe they will change many things. A good example of not bad guys, but of guys who make questionable decisions is Elasticsearch. So Elasticsearch is the system for search, basically, and it's built on top of Lucene, which is this open source Java library, which is not owned by any company. And Elasticsearch became super popular with all this set of additional tools like Logstash, Kibana.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was using it and still use this. And then what happened is that, so they make money in a couple of ways. They offer hosted Elasticsearch, so you don't have to maintain Elasticsearch yourself. You just pay to this Elastic Cloud, and then they do it for you. Plus, there are some paid add-ons for Elasticsearch. So some features that are not included in open source version that you can pay for. What happened, because license allowed it, again, because in open source, this particular license, is that companies like Amazon, and Amazon was the biggest example, they go and they create Amazon service called, what was it like?
Elastic something, I don't remember.
Elasticsearch, whatever. So like basically managed Elasticsearch from AWS. So they basically take Elasticsearch, they wrap it with the AWS service, so it's really easy and expensive to run it. But then everyone is using AWS, so when you, as a startup, start using AWS, you will use this managed service already in AWS. Why would you use like Elasticsearch Cloud if you have Amazon with Elasticsearch there? So Elasticsearch company saw this and is like, we don't like this. Like, we want you to pay us for managing Elasticsearch. So they changed the license, which basically forbids other companies to build services on top of Elasticsearch. And what Amazon did, they're like, well, we have a fork of Elasticsearch. We will call it OpenSearch. And we will also include all of the features you charge for free in this OpenSearch. And now this service from Amazon is called AWS OpenSearch, previously known as AWS Elasticsearch, something like this. So, and that's what happens with open source. You had this, let's say version 1 is fully open source, and then version 2 has a new license, which that forbids. So Amazon took version 1, extended it, and now they use this one, and well, it's still Elasticsearch, more or less, just with features that you previously had to pay for.
I don't know who are the bad guys in this case. Because from my perspective, it looks like AWS basically stealing from the good guys, and they...
No, it's not stealing, it's open. Like, they use Linux. Did they steal Linux? Because
at the same time,
the whole Amazon runs on Linux.
Yes, at the same time, you cannot call this stealing because it's open source from the first place, right? And the reason why the guys that developed Elasticsearch got upset is unknown, and it's hard to understand. But at the same time, I can understand. I can relate to that because AWS basically said that we have this tool when they not, and I don't see any particular reason why they would. I mean, the developers of the Elasticsearch, why would they prefer the developers to use the same tool from them rather than from anyone else? I don't see the difference.
They took a risk, right? Because there are, like this, as Pablo said, like there are 3 ways you can charge for open source. You charge for support, you charge for some managed offering, or you charge for extra features. So I think Elastic Code, they had like lots of money in managed service and extra features, and less in support, and they ended up in a bad situation. Because I know companies who were using Elasticsearch, and when Elasticsearch changed the license, and you read through the license text, it's confusing. You don't know, can I still actually use Elasticsearch for my internal needs, even if I don't build something on top of Elasticsearch to sell to other people? And then these companies are like, okay, we'll just probably stop paying Elasticsearch and just use OpenSearch, because we are not in this uncomfortable situation with this new shitty license that doesn't fit us.
The best example is what we were talking at the beginning, Linux. Linux is something that appeared many years ago as a copy of another operating system called Unix. So as a copy another. So everyone copy another other operating system. So but copy getting the code. And if we don't need to go back to how Unix appeared in Berkeley, okay, or how Linux appeared, how this team of people with Linux create a kernel based on something that was there before, But if we go to what it is Linux in the last 20 years, only that, you can see that you have companies like Red Hat, that there are thousands of people working there. And really, Red Hat now is many other themes, but Red Hat, it was and Red Hat Linux. So it was a company who took the open source code of Linux and was taking every week, as soon as there is a new release of the kernel, for free, because the kernel is a different project. I was taking all the tools from GNU, because you can go to a whatever Red Hat and you can do ls, and you can do a cd, you can do execute those commands, where they were taking all those base of operating system for free, and they were selling. And you have Ubuntu, and you have thousands of companies. I was working, this was something like 21 years ago, in a company called Square, Esware. It was a Spanish company that we were creating Linux from scratch. And it was a Linux based on Red Hat. So, and because Red Hat at this time was open too. It's not like now, it was completely open. So they were selling something, they were packaging something that it was open too. But okay, not based on Red Hat, based on Debian. And Debian is another example of the other side. So Debian is the, let's say, the free project. And then, so you can work with the open source in many ways. And I think that Linux is a very good example, because you can get the open code and you can close. You can get the open code and leave open and sell it. Or you can do like Red Hat, you can do in many ways. So, because for example, today, if you want to update Red Hat, you need to pay. So it wasn't like that before. And then what they decided is to create another versions, like Fedora or other kind of Linux. But everyone does what they want to do with the open source. And there are companies, and if you're a company, you need to make money, and to make money, you need to think in what way do you want to make money. And if you are an organization, depends if you are an organization and the key person are a company people, or your organization and you are a no company people, and then you decide to work on that. But it's like that. But it's true. If it's open, it's open. Imagine they have this Apache license, and Apache is a very good example too, because everyone uses Apache. And even Apache is a company, but okay. But what I mean is that you can get what is there, and you can convert it, and you can resell it. Depends of the license that you have, for sure. And depends of that, nobody can complain. Okay, because Linux is the best example ever. Because Linux today is everywhere. But when I mean everywhere, is everywhere. Even Mac is using Linux.
Yeah. Not
And
Linux,
they,
Unix. Yeah, so
if I remember correctly the history, they never say that, because even Microsoft is using Linux inside to the kernel. And if I remember the history, I don't remember if it was Linux or Microsoft. They never wanted to say that, and at the end that was discovered. I don't remember if it was Linux or was Mac. Sorry for that. I don't want to say something wrong. But everyone is using Linux, and nobody go to Linux.org and pay to him, or to Richard Stallman, or pay to him and Miquel de Casa, pay to him money. Nobody is doing that. Because if this is not open, then you need to pay back all the license. Because now imagine that you are able to get the operating system of Mac, and then you make a new operating system called NKDFOS. And then you are selling this NKDFOS, and this a literal copy of this Mac OS. But because you didn't work on that, for you it's super cheap to do that, then you can sell instead to $100, you sell for $2. So if this is an open project, you can do that for sure.
I just wanted to add that the reason that why I was confused about all this Terraform and HashiCorp situation is because the article that we shared not long ago on our LinkedIn page about how HashiCorp added support of OpenID Connect standard to Terraform, and this was confusing to me because I was genuinely believed at that point that Terraform is an open source and how HashiCorp connects to that and why they add something. And then only then I realized that this article is not about Terraform itself, but about Terraform Cloud, right, an actual tool that was developed by HashiCorp. So they that the reason why they're basically obliged to update this thing, because people are paying for Terraform Cloud, not for Terraform. And this helped me to understand why this was a big deal for a lot of people, because they're actually paying for this tool, and this tool was missing something important.
And it's a good example of so the Terraform is open source now. HashiCorp, because HashiCorp makes money not from Terraform Cloud. They're making money, I think, from services, like Red Hat. Red Hat is not making money from selling OpenShift, software as a service. Support is this huge chunk of revenue for this company, which I think is good, because it's Red Hat is a good example because they're open source based. There are very little Red Hat projects that are not open source. And what is even better is that usually open source version is more advanced than the one that they sell to the customers. So if you look, there's always Red Hat Enterprise Linux, which I think is now version 9 was released or about to be released. And there is Fedora, and Fedora is completely open source, and anyone can use it and do whatever. And Fedora is bleeding edge. It's where all the latest and greatest and newest and craziest features that Red Hat and community around Fedora develop. It's there for free. But if you want something stable and with support, you use this Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8 or 9. Mm-hmm. So they do not handicap open source versions with missing features or missing new things like Elasticsearch did. No, they give everything for free. They give all the latest and greatest for free. But for stability and support, they have these stable versions that are fitting for enterprise, and that's how they make money. And HashiCorp is now trying to do something different. They try to sell more and more services like this Terraform Cloud, because there are competitors who are using Terraform and they can build the better tools on Terraform Cloud for Terraform Cloud, basically. So they need to add these features.
But if you check, for example, HashiCorp is in the stock market. So you can see that, for example, last quarter they made 460 million in revenue. So almost 2 billion in 1 year. And is what Kirill is telling. So most of the money is coming from the subscription revenue, coming from support and from license. This is the money where the money is coming from. Support is jumping from last year 70 million to almost 350 million this January, this first quarter. So they made money, and they made huge amount of money, because 2 billion for a company is...
They're huge. It's huge. Because then they built open source tool that everyone is using, and now companies want support. So
yes.
Also want enterprise flavors.
Yes.
Stuff like HashiCorp Vault, this security tool. It's one of the drivers. I think the Terraform is probably not the biggest revenue driver for HashiCorp. It's something like Vault, because that's the secret management that enterprises need. And it costs, I think, a ridiculous amount of money in support from HashiCorp. But you pay this money because if you're a bank and you have Vault, you want this support. You want HashiCorp guys to be available for you to fix if something goes wrong.
Okay, this might be a stupid question. I'm good with stupid questions. But are you telling me that basically anybody can tell any open source project, any open source tool, build on top of that some convenient tools, convenient UI, convenient support, and hire some people that will explain to you how to use this open source product, and then start charging money for that? And boom, you are a company that goes to market and worth millions of
If
You
license
can
allows
do
it, yes.
this.
Yes. You just need to check the license, and because license is the tricky part. Even like you should be always careful when you write a mobile app or like a web app and you start using different libraries. It could be that one of them has a license telling, if you use my library for projects that cost money, you have to share money with me. Like you cannot use it. Like you cannot use this inside your Ruby on Rails applications and charge money for this application.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to think too that if, for example, it's a huge project and they have made 3 million of lines of code, you need to hire people who is able to read this code, because at the end it's like you go a trial. You need to read all the case line by line, and you need to understand what it's doing. This is the reason, because it's not only a copy paste, is you need to understand that. And this is something that, for example, I was reading the other day about this new version of Copilot, a new version of the AI, that maybe in 1 year you are able to offer automatically a GitHub repo, a huge GitHub repo, and tell to the AI, okay, now I want to add this new functionality to this code. And you don't need to read the 1 million of lines. Okay, this intelligence is going to do that for you, and then it's able to add this part. Because today is a problem, because it's not only that I copy paste, it's that then I need to understand, I need to work with that, and this is expensive. And expensive is, when you're talking about expensive, is expensive. And this is the bad part. But if you have something that made for you and reduce the cost by 1,000, then I think that at this point, maybe people think about twice if I'm going to open a huge project, or maybe I'm going to open, but what Kirill was telling, I'm going to maybe modify the license, because this case with Elasticsearch can be replicated in seconds, because I can take whatever huge code and then repack it, and then add the new functionalities, more cool than what you have, because I have better ideas than you, and I even don't need people to make those ideas, and then I deploy, and that's it. So this is something that maybe in the future, next month, 6 months, 1 year, people need to think twice, because it's not going to be a charity anymore, because now you can say, okay, yes, this is for everyone. We love each other. So, and this is money too.
Yeah, and then some regulation from the government will happen, and everybody's screwed.
could be that. I don't know about this part, about the government and what they said about that. But it's super interesting, this thing about the open source, and really how every company accepted that. But not everything, because I cannot imagine a bank opening the software that show how they make the transaction, the embargoes, and KYC, all these things. I cannot imagine they are opening this code, because maybe you are opening a backdoor to other people to be able to get the money. But they are part of code that, yes, for sure, will be open.
That's an interesting topic, and I think we should discuss this on the next podcast, about like when a lot of people are contributing to some tool that a lot of other companies are using, like Terraform, and a lot of people know this code from inside, and they know all its good parts and bad parts, and they know how to exploit this code, and this code could become a backdoor to the company's infrastructure somehow. And this is a difficult part of using open source. And I would like to pick on this team, but we will talk about this later, not today.
Kirill, you wanted to say something?
All right, I want to touch another topic, because you're telling about that bank will not open source, but there's another side of open source, is that companies, it's very tricky to understand if you're allowed to contribute to open source, especially as a permanent employee, because you have an issue with the law, basically. And imagine you're using some open source tool, and it's not a huge one, but it's just like some utility that helps you with like some part of your systems. And it has a bug or a missing feature. And as a developer in the same programming language, that you can actually add this feature in like 2 days of work. And then if you add it, then the company where you work will benefit from it. and open source community will benefit. And I think that's one of the most beautiful situations where you're being paid. You get salary from one company that has a business in some particular field, and the salary goes to basically pay you to contribute to an open source project because this open source project is used by this company. And then everyone who uses this open source project benefits from this. I think it's one of these honest, fair systems of open source. Like there is no, in my, like if I have a shop that sells the dog food and I contribute to open source library for logging, I don't have an interest in like profiting from this open source library. I have it, like I'm selling the food for dogs. So there's like no interest to make commercialize this open source lib, and everyone wins from this, right? And then I don't need to work on this on the weekends because I need this tool to be fixed for my particular job. So I don't need to like work evenings or weekends. But the problem is, unless you're like an external, you cannot actually easily contribute. You need to go and ask for permission, because if you write the code to an open source library, this code belongs to the company where you work because they paid you.
If you do this while on your working hours of the company.
If you simplify, yes, but actually no, because how do you prove when you worked on this code? Yes, like you can prove when you push the code, but when did your brain work on this? So there were actually cases, I think in the US, where there's like, yes, I worked, and it's more like about personal projects, because you can say, yes, I worked on this project on my weekend, but maybe you were thinking about the architecture for this project on Tuesday, like 11 a.m. So that's what happened to Nginx, right? This Rambler, Russian company, was like, yeah, well, you're actually developing Nginx for our money. Nginx belongs to us. Luckily, they lost, and like Nginx still survives. But that's what actually happened. The company where I think Igor Sesoyev was working for and developed Nginx. They tried to sue him. They said like Nginx is ours because you were working for us when Nginx appeared, and Nginx was open source.
But then again, if the company uses this open source tool and they would like to improve it slightly for their own benefits, and they ask their own developers to contribute to this open source project, like to make adjustments, does it count?
That's the point. You need the permission. You need like a clear statement from your company that you're allowed to contribute.
A permission from who?
From your employer.
Yeah,
whoever pays your salary.
Oh, okay. So as long as your employer allows you to contribute, or explicitly asks you to contribute, then you're good.
Yes, because otherwise you wrote some code for the company and made it public. So what? You broke NDA. You just published corporate code. So you need permission for this, and that's always tricky. You cannot just work on pet projects without getting permission. It's actually like in Germany by law, you need to get the permission for this. And same, an open source is no different because of this legal situation.
Yes, because there are 2 points here. You're working maybe for another company indirectly, but you're working for another company and you don't get money. And second, maybe you are doing in the same laptop, maybe, that you are using to work with the customers with compliancy that you are not going to do that. So at the end, there are many themes to check in these situations, you know.
I'm sorry, Pablo, continue.
No. What I mean is that at the end, always there is a benefit to the project, the destination of the project, economical benefit or whatever benefit, but always there is a benefit to the one that you contribute to. So then the problem is that if I pay to you your salary and then you are using 2 hours of your working time or your time to work in this other, you are contributing to this other project, maybe it's not an increase of the benefit economical, but always maybe yes in the future. And you are maybe doing something that is against of my own company. And this is one of the cases that, for example, when you are a permanent in many companies, you sign a contract that is telling to you, is what Kirill was telling. Even if you are imagine this is an IT company and you are a developer and you want to open a grocery, you need to talk with them and you need to explain to them, I'm going to open a grocery, nothing to do with open source, and I'm going to open a grocery and I'm going to put my money. I'm going to work 3 hours per day here, but okay, I'm still going to work 8 hours here. And they need to approve and all that because they are the main source of your income, and you need to tell that to them.
Yeah, that's true. And I would love to hear more stories from different people who
More groceries.
from more groceries. Yeah, from people who stuck in a difficult situation because of open source or their work with open source, or from someone who actually gets some benefits from working with open source. And I hope those who are listening to us right now have their own stories and they could share them with us. If you would like to tell your own story, you can just click reply on any of our dispatch newsletter emails. We read everything that drops into our email inbox, or you can share your comments on, LinkedIn, where we share the links to this podcast. But for today, I think we are done. We will thank everyone who listens to us. And don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and we will be waiting for you for the next episode. And this 10th episode, anniversary episode, is over.
Okay, it's not anniversary because it's not 1 year. But okay.
10th anniversary. Whatever.
Thank you, everyone. See you.
There are no challenges that we couldn't overcome. Whether it is immediate infrastructure problems or planning a future project, we won't simply answer your questions. We become a part of your team to help you complete the mission. Our solutions consider the interests of your business and the combined expertise of the industry, as our staff is made up of more than a dozen experts in different areas who share decades of field-tested experience and knowledge with you.